Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting Science with John session.
Yay!
Yay!
Today's subject is one that's very tasty: cheese, and more specifically, the science of cheese. How is it made? So we're going to delve deeper into the world of cheese, and I'll try not to be too cheesy. Yeah, whatever. That was a cheesy joke. And we'll get right into it. So let me get screen sharing with you guys. We'll get started. Now, do all of you enjoy cheese? Is that something that you
like shredded cheese.
You like shredded cheese?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. I like mozzarella and like cheese sticks.
Yeah, I like that kind of thing. It's amazing.
Yeah, they're good to snack on.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. I got multiple things I could show you. Well, let's go over a brief history of cheese.
Before empires and royalty, before pottery and writing, before metal tools and weapons, there was cheese. As early as 8000 BCE, the earliest Neolithic farmers living in the Fertile Crescent began a legacy of cheese making, almost as old as civilization itself. The rise of agriculture led to domesticated sheep and goats, which ancient farmers harvested for milk. But when left in warm conditions for several hours, that fresh milk began to sour. Its lactic acids caused proteins to coagulate, binding into soft clumps. Upon discovering this strange transformation, the farmers drained the remaining liquid, later named whey, and found the yellowish globs could be eaten fresh as a soft, spreadable meal. These clumps, or curds, became the building blocks of cheese, which would eventually be aged, pressed, ripened, and whizzed into a diverse cornucopia of dairy delights. The discovery of cheese gave Neolithic people an enormous survival advantage. Milk was rich with essential proteins, fats, and minerals, but it also contained high quantities of lactose, a sugar which is difficult to process for many ancient and modern stomachs. Cheese, however, could provide all of milk's advantages with much less lactose. And since it could be preserved and stockpiled, these essential nutrients could be eaten throughout scarce famines and long winters. Some 7th millennium BCE pottery fragments found in Turkey still contain telltale residues of the cheese and butter they held. By the end of the Bronze Age, cheese was a standard commodity in maritime trade throughout the Eastern Mediterranean.
That's a lot of cheese.
In the densely populated city-states of Mesopotamia, cheese became a staple of culinary and religious life. Some of the earliest known writing includes administrative records of cheese quotas, listing a variety of cheeses for different rituals and populations across Mesopotamia. Records from nearby civilizations in Turkey also reference rennet. This animal byproduct, produced in the stomachs of certain mammals, can accelerate and control coagulation. Eventually, this sophisticated cheese-making tool spread around the globe, giving way to a wide variety of new, harder cheeses. And though some conservative food cultures rejected the dairy delicacy, many more embraced cheese and quickly added their own local flavors. Nomadic Mongolians used yak's milk to create hard, sun-dried wedges of buaslag. Egyptians enjoyed goat's milk cottage cheese, straining the whey with reed mats. In South Asia, milk was coagulated with a variety of food acids, such as lemon juice, vinegar, or yogurt, and then hung to dry into loaves of paneer. This soft, mild cheese could be added to curries and sauces, or simply fried as a quick vegetarian dish. The Greeks produced bricks of salty, brined feta cheese, alongside a harder variety similar to today's Pecorino Romano. This grating cheese was produced in Sicily and used in dishes all across the Mediterranean. Under Roman rule, dry cheese, or Caseus aridus, became an essential ration for the nearly 500,000 soldiers guarding the vast borders of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, give the army cheese.
And when the Western Roman Empire collapsed, cheesemaking continued to evolve in the manners that dotted the medieval European countryside. In the hundreds of Benedictine monasteries scattered across Europe, medieval monks experimented endlessly with different types of milk, cheesemaking practices, and aging processes that led to many of today's popular cheeses. Parmesan, Roquefort, Munster, and several Swiss types were all refined and perfected by these cheese-making clergymen. In the Alps, Swiss cheesemaking was particularly successful, producing a myriad of cow's milk cheeses. By the end of the 14th century, Alpine cheese from the Gruyere region of Switzerland had become so profitable that a neighboring state invaded the Gruyere highlands to take control of the growing cheese trade.
What?
Cheese remained popular through the Renaissance, and the Industrial Revolution took production out of the monastery and into machinery. Today, the world produces roughly 22 billion kilograms of cheese a year, shipped and consumed around the globe. But 10,000 years after its invention, local farms are still following in the footsteps of their Neolithic ancestors, handcrafting one of humanity's oldest and favorite foods. Find out how Swiss cheese gets its holes by watching this episode.
So how crazy is that, man? Like they found pottery from like
Yeah.
thousands,
crazy, John.
thousands and thousands of years ago that
Hi,
had
Sarah.
cheese.
Hi.
Hey, Sarah, welcome to the call.
Thank you.
So yeah, it was, I thought that was a cool one. That was like a TED Talk one.
That's awesome.
Kind of tells you the history of cheese. All right, let's see. So it's also interesting that cheese is made with curds and whey. The whey is the liquid that the curds end up forming in, and then they squeeze out the whey in order to have the curds on their own and dried up into bigger blocks of cheese. So you use the curds to make the cheese, and the whey is just a byproduct. So I find that interesting that, Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet eating curds and whey. That sounds gross. She's eating like milky water.
How's it for Halloween one year?
Yeah. She was eating milky water with like, lumps of curds in it. I don't know.
Ew, gross.
Let's find out about the science of cheese, shall we?
Ooh.
When people say the wheel is the most important invention in human history, I like to think they're talking about cheese.
A cheese wheel.
After bread, cheese might represent mankind's oldest food produced by science, maybe even predating beer. Problem is, there's so many different cheeses made in so many different ways that figuring out the science behind this ancient food is enough to turn your brain into an ooey gooey melty mess. So today I'm heading over to my favorite cheese shop in Austin to see if we can eat our way to some knowledge.
Oh, wow.
I'm here with Cara, our friendly neighborhood cheese expert, to find out a little bit more about the science.
Cara
cheese.
Chadthorne,
How's
cheese
it
monger.
going?
Feeling fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be here. So it seems like for as long as people have been drinking milk, they've been eating cheese. So where did cheese start?
Documentation kind of doesn't go back as far as cheese does, but the original recipe, as legend has it, was actually an accident, as so many great food discoveries tend to be, right? A Middle Eastern goat herder who was traveling across this kind of dry, arid desert tried to store his milk in the stomach sac, essentially, of one of his animals that they had butchered, sort of like a canteen. Unfortunately, when he went to drink it later, it was solid. I say unfortunately for him. For us, obviously, it was very fortunate because that's how we kind of learned that milk can turn solid and started to discover how.
Yeah, I think that worked out pretty well for
Yeah,
us.
I say so, yeah.
So there's something special about an animal stomach that turns milk into cheese.
Rennet. Rennet is one of the 4 core ingredients in making cheese, and it really is what gives body to the milk. So it's the stomach lining, serves kind of as a sort of akin to gelatin.
Let's say I've got a glass of milk. and I want to turn it into cheese. What's the first step?
So 4 ingredients are necessary in making any cheese. You've already got the first one if you got your milk. You want to heat up the milk, and then you add in cultures. And cultures are essentially where we're going to start that lactofermentation process. The same way that yeast drives the fermentation process of the bread base, those cultures do the same for the milk. And then you start to add in that rennet. And the rennet is what's going to give you solids versus liquids. So it's going to separate the curds from the whey. As soon as you have that texture, you're cutting the curds. And that's the first big decision, is how big do you cut them? Because the more surface area on each curd, the more it's going to kind of wash out that whey. So if you want a softer cheese, you're going to cut the curds a bit larger. If you want to make something like a Parmesan or Reggiano, something you're going to really age out, you want it to be dry, you're going to go small. And then you're going to kind of, as soon as it's sturdy enough, season your cheese. And that's the salt. And those are really the 4 ingredients you need to make any cheese. All right, so here we have our 7 styles of cheese. And this is just how we talk about cheese here. It's our vocabulary, so people kind of feel at ease with chatting cheese, right? So we're gonna start fresh with fresh cheeses. Color and rinds develop with age. So we just have a perfectly white cheese right here that's really just a beautiful example of a feta or a fresh cheese. All right, so down here we have kind of this middle grouping of cheeses. We have semi-soft cheeses. Those are the ones that are really gonna bend before they break. Lower melting points, so these are your grilled cheeses. Firm cheeses, those are gonna definitely break, not bend, but they might still have a nice kind of melt in your mouth quality here. So these are gonna include a lot of the cheddars out there, a lot of the kind of Gruyere, Swiss cheeses, things like that. And then we have our hard cheeses, often considered recipe cheeses or grating cheeses.
If you ask me, all cheese is great. Cheesy jokes.
But then once you've got your cheese and you're setting it to age, there are certain molds and bacteria in any environment. There are millions and trillions around us right now, right, that are going to affect this very porous surface that is cheese. These are the cheeses that really use molds and bacteria in the make process itself. So starting towards the younger end of things, we have these bloomy rinded cheeses.
So Dennis asked me before the class started, can you eat mold? And I said, well, we'll kind of talk about it in our class because they do use bacteria and mold in some cheeses to give them flavor, especially blue cheese. Those veins of blue are usually a specific type of mold that it isn't unsafe to eat. So yeah, it depends on the mold.
What's happening here is there's this one strain of mold called Penicillium candidum, and the cheesemaker is either mixing it in with the milk or actually spraying the exterior of the formed cheese with this mold. So next here, we'll go over to these wash rinds. Now, this is where you're using bacteria instead of mold. The Trappist monks were kind of the first people making wash rind cheeses. During Lent, when they were abstaining from eating meat, they would take their beers and use them to wash their cheeses. Bacteria that lived in the beer itself, called Brevibacterium linens, gives you a very, very meaty sort of flavor.
So this one's really soft.
It's definitely smell this one. So this is where you're going to get those funky flavors there, funky aromas.
I can smell the beer in this. It's like,
Totally. The environment in which you're aging has a huge deal to do with what the cheese is going to end up tasting like and feeling like. You can make Roquefort cheese in the caves of France, and then if you try to make the same recipe with your sheep smoke over in California, it's going to be wildly different because you just don't have the same aging environment. There aren't the same native sort of molds and bacteria.
so that's what we see in blue cheese. Is it a fungus that's in there?
It's a mold. It's a penicillium. This type of penicillium needs oxygen in order to bloom into bloom. So what they're doing is creating these passageways. These lines you see here are where they needled the cheese, and you can see these little dots on top too. And you can see that they actually poked holes in the cheese during the aging process.
You should sell this as a perfume, just like a little bit.
Just a little ode to blue
It
cheese.
smells so good. Okay. So there you have it. An 8,000-year-old food, our first biotechnology, nature's most delicious accident. It's half science, half art, half microbial magic, but cheese is all delicious. You have the best job ever.
It's a pretty good job, I'm not gonna lie. Cheesemonger, fun word, fun job.
Stay curious.
So that's pretty cool, man. Like,
That's awesome, John.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
that's awesome.
I don't know if I'd feel
John, just get my video.
yeah, we're gonna show your video next.
Okay. I think it's 2 different videos. Well, it's actually a bunch of different videos.
Yeah, I picked out one out of the videos you sent 'cause I thought it was pretty cool. It's actually right in Vermont where they're making cheddar. So
Yeah.
let's take a look at how they're separating it. See, those are the curds. Those are
In the
curds being
tiny
separated.
town of Cabot, Vermont, this creamery has been churning out dairy products for 100 years. Their claim to fame? The Vermont Cheddar. Cabot Creamery makes about 130 million pounds of the stuff each year,
Holy cow.
and it ends up on shelves across the U.S. Their extra sharp cheddar nabbed first place in the 2019 US Championship Cheese Contest, while their mild and medium cheddars got first in the 2018 World Championship for cheese. Yep, such a competition exists, and I want to be a judge. So how does Cabot Creamery make the world's tastiest cheddar cheese? Well, it all started here in Vermont, on a family farm. In 1919, 94 farmers in Cabot, hoping to better market their dairy products, formed a cooperative. This co-op meant the farmers not only owned the Cabot brand, but saw 100% of the profits. Fast forward a century, and the creamery still runs on this model. But today, more than 800 family farms across New England own Cabot. Farms just like this one. This is Fairmont in East Montpelier, Vermont.
My name's Clara, and I'm a third generation dairy farmer here at Fairmont. My husband tells me that he's eaten more cheese since he's met me than he ever did in his life before.
As part of the Cabot Cooperative, Clara's family knows exactly where their milk is going, and even what products it'll become.
Our milk mostly becomes hard cheeses and butter.
Cabot deals with making, marketing, and selling the cheese, so the farmers can focus on what they do best, milking cows. Clara's family has almost 1,500 Holstein cows at their two farms, one here in East Montpelier and one in Craftsbury, Vermont.
We ship about 5 million gallons of milk a year.
Fairmont milks their cows using a milking machine, attached to the udders by a farmhand.
The cows are being really well cared for and loved by family farmers, and that's really special.
But some of Cabot's newest farm facilities are using robotic milkers to speed up the process.
Ugh.
Once the milk is collected, it's held in tanks until a Cabot truck arrives. These trucks can come up to 3 times a day to load up the supply of fresh milk and transport it to the Cabot plant. Here it will become either butter, cottage cheese, sour cream, yogurt, or of course, cheese. Cheddar cheese. It takes Cabot about 10 gallons of milk to make just 1 pound of cheese. To make Cabot's signature cheddar, first the milk is pasteurized. The milk is then poured into a huge vat where a starter culture of bacteria and the special enzyme called rennet are added in. This combo jumpstarts the process of curdling the milk into cheese. And as the cheese is formed, big steel wires break it down into small curds and a liquid known as whey. Once the cheese curds are cooked through, the whey and the curds head to the finishing table. Here, the whey is drained out. Salt is added in to cut some of that acidity. This is also the point where Cabot can add in herbs and other ingredients to make their specialty flavors, like super spicy habanero and the cheese for us weaker heat seekers, the pepper jack. After that, everything's mixed together. Next, the cheese curds are squeezed together to form massive 40 or 60-pound blocks. Those blocks are then sent to the aging room, where they're left in a temperature-controlled space to mature. These folks are the cheese graders, the people responsible for making sure Cabot's cheese is aging up to their world's best standard.
On average, in our inventory, we have close to 70 million pounds of cheese that we repeatedly will sample.
Dude, these guys, it's their job to eat cheese. That's hilarious.
On an everyday basis. Some days we're evaluating up to 150 samples or vats a day.
When the cheese finally makes it to the aging room, the cheese graters take a plug or a
Look at that. They got like a little cheese stick maker. They just pop it right in the middle of the block of cheese.
sample out of each block.
Flavor, it's a good Monterey Jack, a little salty.
And Monterey Jack is typically a short aged cheese. Younger cheese, the moisture added to it. With the unique profile.
As the cheddar gets older, the flavors that develop become more intense. Yeah, every batch tastes a little bit different. 1,000 different farms. I mean, the mix is always going to be a little bit different. Cheese is a living organism.
Graders like Gina and Ted determine when a cheese block is ready to be cut. The blocks head back to the factory for the finishing touches. An industrial slicer breaks those puppies down to a more edible 8-ounce block.
Nice.
Then it's sealed in plastic and boxed up in crates. Those boxes of Cabot's signature cheese and all 50 of their other flavors will end up in stores across all 50 states.
That's pretty cool. I know they put them into 8-ounce blocks, but it'd kind of be cool to get my hands on one of those 60-pound blocks that they keep in the aging room.
Right?
Just have a 60-pound block of Cabot cheese. That'd probably be so much money.
And so much cholesterol and fat.
So much fat cholesterol, yeah. All right, let's see here. Let's look at this other one I found.
Drawing out the facts, the Naked Science Scrapbook. Hello and welcome to the Naked Science Scrapbook from the Naked Scientist. This time we're answering the question, how is cheese made? If, like me, you're a fan of cheese, you'll agree that there's almost no meal that it doesn't go well with. Perhaps for this reason, humans have been making cheese for thousands of years, and today there are hundreds of different types. But how is it made? Let's take cheddar as an example, which is a hard cheese that originated in Cheddar in England at least 800 years ago, but is now made all over the world. The main ingredient for making cheese is milk, and for most cheeses, including cheddar, this means cow's milk, although goat, sheep, and even buffalo milk are used too. And we're talking a lot of milk here. 1 pint makes just 56 grams of cheddar, roughly the amount that you'd put in a generous sandwich. The cheese-making process starts off with a big vat of pasteurized whole milk. The first stage is called souring. A bacterial culture is added that feeds on the lactose sugar in the milk and converts it to lactic acid, making the milk sour. Different bacterial cultures give individual cheeses their unique characteristics. Swiss cheeses, for example, like Emmental, are full of holes because the bacteria added to those breathe out carbon dioxide gas that accumulates inside and creates the holes.
Isn't that cool? So Swiss cheese, the holes are basically where the bubbles of carbon dioxide, formed. It's pretty wild.
Souring the milk helps with the next phase, coagulation. The soured milk is heated to around 30 degrees Celsius and an enzyme called rennet is stirred in. Rennet causes the proteins in the milk, called casinogens, to coagulate or clump together into a form called casein. This starts to separate out from the watery whey as solid curds. Rennet is actually obtained from the stomachs of calves. They use it to coagulate the milk from their mothers, and historians have suggested that early people may have stumbled on its action when they used calf stomachs to store milk. This would have split into curds and whey, explaining how cheese was first accidentally discovered, somewhere in Europe or the Middle East, up to 8,000 years ago. This means that cheese made using this traditional rennet isn't vegetarian. Fortunately, forms of rennet made from plants are now available, so cheese-loving veggies can still get their fix.
Cheese-loving veggies.
Once the curds have set, they're cut into pieces using a set of wire knives resembling a rake. The smaller the pieces the curds are cut into, the more whey is released, which ends up producing a harder finished cheese like cheddar. After the curds have been cut into pieces, the heat is then turned up to 40 degrees and the curds are cooked. The whey is then drained off and the curds are cheddared, which involves stacking up blocks of curds to allow more whey to drain out. The curds are then milled into small pieces and mixed with salt, which plays an important role in determining the final flavour of the cheese. The mixture is now ready to be put into the moulds to be shaped into the finished cheese. Weights are applied to press the cheddar and drive out more water. If cheese isn't pressed, it'll have a more open, soft texture like the Italian cheese Pecorino. After being pressed overnight, the cheese is turned out of the molds and left until the surface dries out in a room kept at 15 degrees C. It's then kept in a cooled room at around 8 degrees C to mature, and it's during this phase that the flavours develop. These are produced by a combination of the bacterial culture added at the start, which continues to break down the proteins and sugars in the milk, and the humidity and temperature at which the cheese is matured. For
John,
cheddar,
would you mind pausing
maturation
for a
takes
second?
around 3 months, but some cheeses are aged for much longer.
What's that?
I was just wondering, do you know, so just so everyone knows, C is for Celsius, but do you know what that would be in Fahrenheit degrees? Did you happen to find that?
That's a good point. Hey Siri, what is 8 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
8 degrees Celsius is 46.4 degrees
46.4 degrees
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
So just above what a refrigerator keeps itself
Yeah,
at. Cool.
Yeah, pretty chill. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the basic cheese making process. But what about blue cheeses like Stilton and Gorgonzola? How are they made?
The smelly cheeses.
These cheeses contain characteristic blue veins, and both these and the strong smell and taste of the cheeses are produced by penicillium molds growing on and in the maturing cheese.
Oh, the blue is
These
mold.
molds are actually close fungal relatives of the same mold used to make the antibiotic penicillin. But in the case of blue cheese, a species called Penicillium roqueforti, which was originally discovered in caves near Roquefort in France, or Penicillium glaucum are used. In Stilton, the penicillium mold is added right at the beginning of the process, alongside the starter culture of lactic acid producing bacteria. This means the mold is present throughout the cheese. The cheese making process continues as before, but this time the cheese isn't pressed. This allows plenty of air spaces to remain in the cheese to allow the mold to grow. After they've been aging for 6 weeks, holes are poked in the sides of the Stiltons using sterilized steel needles. This introduces extra air to keep the penicillium mold growing and helping to form the characteristic and strongly flavored blue veins. There are many more alterations and additions to the basic cheese making process, as many as there are varieties of cheese. The type of milk, how the curds are cut, how much salt is added, where and how long the cheese is aged, all impact on flavor and texture. Some cheeses are covered in wax like Edam, or sprayed with a mold culture like Brie and Camembert, wrapped in nettle leaves like Cornish Yogg, or even bathed in alcohol, which gives the orange rind and pungent smell of époisse. P.U. Now, if you'll excuse me, all this talk of cheese has made me want to go and have some. That's it for this time. To get the answers to more science questions, join us online at thenakedscientist.com/.
Yeah, she's got a point. I'm starting.
That
to
was
get hungry.
weird.
I'm starting to get hungry for cheese.
No, me too.
I thought that
I've
was
grilled
cool.
cheese. I can have some of.
I thought that was a cool one though.
Yeah.
All right, so
Tired, Hannah?
A little bit, yeah. The chemistry of cheese.
Cheese is made from milk. Sometimes that milk comes from cows, but in some parts of the world it comes from sheep, goats, or other breeds. But it's primarily starting from milk. Most times they'll add starter culture to it, which are bacteria to it. When they get added to the milk fat and the temperature is warm and there's lots of sugar around for them to ferment on, they will start to grow and ferment this lactose in there. They will start to increase in numbers. They will double, divide, and grow, produce more acid. And that's what we want in this cheese making process. We want them to grow and produce an acid to drop the pH down. But their primary reason to be there is that they can ferment lactose. Now, there are other cultures out there that don't ferment lactose, and they're not that valuable in this process to ferment because they wouldn't use the sugar, because that's the only primary sugar in milk is lactose. The other thing that's added often too for some varieties is some color to give it a stronger red color or yellow color to it. And the other thing that's the last ingredient that's usually added is what is called a rennet enzyme, which is historically extracted from calves. And that is the enzyme that actually clots milk and helps create the cheese. But they are the only ingredients that we use for it. Main steps in cheese making are, nowadays we pasteurize the milk, but historically they would not have pasteurized the milk. Next step, they would add a starter culture to it, which will be the thing that will ferment the lactose, the sugar, milk sugar, to lactic acid. After that, they will add the rennet enzyme, which will be the enzyme that clots the milk protein and allows it to form this gel. Once this gel has formed, and it usually doesn't take more than 10 to 30 minutes for it to gel, the cheesemaker will cut it into cubes with a knife or a harp or some blade. Once that sample has been cut, They will stir it, and once they think they have enough acid developed in this milk by the starter culture, they will remove the whey or drain it through a sieve or a screen or
that's all the
some
curds
bench
that are
or
left.
something. And all actions from there on are trying to get some more whey or water out of these curd particles to make it a lower moisture product so it'll have a longer shelf life rather than go spoil very quickly within hours or days, which it would have historically done. And depending on the variety, they will either chop it up into pieces and add dry salt to it, or in some varieties like Swiss and other cheeses, they will take the cheese and put it into a tank of salt. We call it brine solution, and it will sit in that brine solution for either hours or days, depending on the variety. Once that process is done, the cheese now is stored in some room, cave, or some environment where it will stay for days, weeks, months, years, depending on the variety. Sometimes we will package it with some plastic wrap or vacuum pack to remove oxygen. Sometimes we will put a wax on the outside, otherwise it will dry out. So here in this lab, we have several different approaches for testing cheese. One is compositionally testing what's in there, whether it's just how much fat, how much protein, how much salt, things like that are present in it. But there's also analytical for what type of flavor compounds are present. Are they the right type of flavor compounds in the cheese? Is the concentration too low, too high for this nice flavor we expect in this particular variety? So that's another type of testing we do. And another testing we do is how well it performs or the texture is looking like, for example, for melt or stretch or some performance like that. Because a lot of cheese is used in pizzas, hamburgers, in lasagnas, in all sorts of dishes. What we do is we actually use rheology equipment, which is very similar to what we use in chemical engineering departments. We actually study what the mechanical properties are of these cheeses when they're heated. We use these kind of tests for all different types of cheeses.
It's a real cheese lab that we just saw. So yeah, there's a lot more science that goes into the cheese that you get at the grocery store. Yeah. It's all like a fine balance. Are you guys all gone? You're all eating cheese right now, aren't you?
Oh, we're here.
All right. So I found a cool one that's about what cheese looks like around the world, because there's so many different kinds of cheese. I thought it'd be cool to kind of see what different parts of the world make for cheese. Because like they said, depending on where you are and the bacteria in your area, and if you have a cold cave in France that you can have it, age in, it's all, those are all factors to the cheese. So no cheese is created equally, but this will tell us more about cheese from around the world.
Someone you can rely, who's always on your side. That's why there's Nationwide. That's why there's Nationwide. Nationwide is on your side.
Yeah, that's great.
Why do we love cheese so much? With different techniques, milks, and types, here's what cheese looks like around the world.
Look at that. All right, we're starting in Italy, of course.
Mozzarella originated in southern Italy, and legend says it was created by mistake when cheese curds accidentally fell into hot water. Mozzarella is commonly used on pizza or in salads, or, as you may know, mozzarella sticks. Although it can be made from any milk, in Italy, it is traditionally produced from the milk of the Italian water buffalo.
Water buffalo.
It's spongy, soft, and moist. Caseificio La Fattoria in Battipaglia in the Campania region of southern Italy makes over 9 tons of fresh mozzarella per day.
9
Their staple
tons a
creation
day?
is Zizzona, which is a huge mozzarella ball that can weigh up to 88 pounds.
Dude.
Another great cheese from Italy is the white and blue marbled Gorgonzola. There are only 29 dairies in the world certified to produce this cheese. Close to 5 million wheels are produced each year, and the production takes place in the Italian regions of Piedmont and Lombardy. When young, it is soft and creamy, but the texture is much stronger when it's matured. Gorgonzola is one of the world's oldest blue vein cheeses and is made exclusively with cow's milk. It can be paired with grapes, honey, and pistachios. Paneer is the common cheese used throughout the Indian subcontinent. Like cottage cheese, paneer is not aged and is made with milk curds. It is prepared by adding food acids, such as lemon juice, yogurt, or vinegar, to hot milk. The curds are separated from the whey and drained in a muslin or cheesecloth so the excess water can be pressed out and paneer can be produced. Paneer is used in many Indian cuisines, like paneer tikka masala.
Oh, where are we going now? England.
Cheddar cheese dates back to the late 12th century in the caves found at the edge of the village in the Cheddar Gorge. According to a myth, a milkmaid forgot a pail of milk in one of the caves, and when she returned, the milk had turned hard. Cheddar cheese then became so loved by English monarchs that records show King Henry II purchasing 10,240 pounds of cheddar in 1170.
Good Lord. That's a lot of cheese, man.
This crumbly cheese is called ibe. The mild Ethiopian cheese is traditionally served with spicy dishes to help ease the heat.
Cyprus.
Halloumi cheese originated on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus. Traditionally, it was made from sheep and goat milk, but cow's milk is now used as well. Halloumi is white and has a salty flavor and is often served grilled or fried because of its high melting point. Alibaba's in London's Camden Market sells deep fried halloumi cheese fries covered in different sauces and spices.
Oh my God, it looks so unhealthy, but so delicious. Georgia.
From the region of San Miguelo, Georgia's Solgany cheese is made from pasteurized cows, goats, and water buffalo's milk. The brine cheese is often served in wedges. It's also used in one of Georgia's staple dishes, khachapuri.
Switzerland.
Gruyere cheese is named after its birthplace, the town of Gruyères in Switzerland. It's a type of Swiss cheese made from cow's milk. Gruyere is a hard cheese that melts well and is often used for fondue.
Greece.
Greece's favorite cheese is called feta. According to Greek mythology, the Cyclops, Polyphemus, was the first to prepare cheese.
What?
He transported milk that he collected from his sheep in bags made of animal stomachs. It wasn't long until he realized the milk had curdled and had taken on a solid form. The white, curdled, crumbly cheese, known as feta, is made from sheep and goat's milk, or a mix of both. It's commonly used in salads, pastries, and served alone on platters. Havarti was created in the mid-1800s by a Danish woman named Hanne Nielsen. She washed curds in fresh spring water, then pressed them into cheese molds and drained them, which created a soft, creamy cheese. She named it after her farm, Havartagard.
Mexico.
Cotija is named after the town Cotija in the Mexican state of Michoacan. The hard, crumbly cheese is made from unpasteurized cow's milk. It's salty and is commonly grated over salads, tacos, tostadas, and the traditional Mexican corn dish, elote.
Whoa.
Oaxaca cheese, more commonly known as quesillo, is a white, semi-hard, stretchy cheese. It's named after its birthplace, Oaxaca, a state in Mexico. During production, it is stretched into long ribbons and rolled into a ball.
Just making a ball
It's
of
commonly
yarn.
used in quesadillas and empanadas.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn
Oh,
unlimited
sorry,
double
guys.
miles everywhere. Wow. And you can use them on any
But
trip.
my car doesn't get double miles.
You can 1,000 bonus miles in the first year. What's in your wallet?
Oh, Croatia.
Paški sir is a hard-aged cheese from the Croatian island of Pag. It's produced from Paška Ova, a unique breed of small sheep. These sheep produce very salty milk, and not much of it at all. For this reason, at least 16 sheep are needed to produce just one wheel of cheese.
Wow.
Paški sir is best served with wildflower honey or fresh fruits.
Finland.
Leipä Juusto, also known as Juusto Leipä, is a Finnish cheese. In English, it's also known as Finnish squeaky cheese. It's made with cows, goats, or reindeer's milk. This bread
Reindeer's milk.
cheese can be grilled and served hot or cold. Some even have it soaked in their coffee.
What?
In the province
I'm open to new cultural experiences, but I don't know if I'd want to have cheese that's been soaked in coffee. That sounds sounds kind of gross. I don't know. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that they make it with reindeer's milk. That's awesome.
Of North Holland is the town called Edam, where this cheese was born. Edam is a semi-hard cheese traditionally sold in spheres. The insides are yellow and the outside is covered with a red paraffin wax. It ages well and does not spoil quickly. Instead, it hardens, making it edible for a long time. This hard cheese is a Spanish favorite. Manchego is produced in the La Mancha region of Spain and made from unpasteurized sheep's milk. Fresh Manchego can be aged for a minimum of only 2 weeks, whereas some Manchego mature for more than 1 year. The rind usually has a basket weave pattern pressed onto it. Jarlsberg cheese originated in Norway. The mild, buttery cheese is based on a secret Norwegian recipe from 1956. It resembles a Swiss Emmental with distinctive holes and has a nutty flavor. It's a versatile cheese that can be eaten on sandwiches or even melted for fondue.
The Middle East.
Nablus is a salty white cheese with tiny black nigella seeds. It has a slightly spicy taste. Nablus originated from the town of Nablus in Palestine, but it is now made throughout the Middle East. It's usually eaten fresh as a table cheese, or it can be fried in oil. One dish you won't miss it in is kanafa, a staple Palestinian dessert.
Turkey.
Izine is a staple in Turkey. It's made from pasteurized goat, sheep, and cow's milk and ages anywhere between 3 and 6 months. This factory in the town of Izine pasteurizes 60 tons of milk per day. Izine cheese can be eaten with a traditional Turkish breakfast. In Puerto Rico, you can find queso del país, sometimes referred to as queso blanco. The Indalac factory in San Juan produces as many as 10,000 blocks of queso del país per week.
What?
The cheese can be found on store shelves throughout the island.
Wait, before you scroll away, you need to hear this.
No.
Oh God, no.
No.
Are moving.
Don't worry. Hey, finally, the
Although
U.S.
Munster cheese is American-made, it's an imitation of France's Munster cheese. The smooth yellow cheese has an orange rind and is made from pasteurized cow's milk. Its texture makes it good for melting.
Eating a lot
Used on sandwiches,
of
burgers,
eating right
macaroni,
now.
and cheese. France's
I just had a
cheese
slice of that.
is known to be one of the world's best blue cheeses. It's made from sheep milk and ages up to 5 months. It's moist and breaks into little pieces easily and is commonly used in salads and dressings. Which cheeses are your favorite? Let us know in the comments below.
All of them. Well,
Let
not
me, yeah, I was gonna say, let me just say all of them.
Yeah, me too.
those all look amazing.
Not gonna lie, Munster cheese is like one of my favorites to just snack on.
Oh,
I love
it. Great.
I just had one. I just had a slice of that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I did find a video that's 6 cheeses you should never put in your body. It's 5 minutes long. I don't know if you guys want to see that. After all the food porn.
I'm up for it.
Yeah,
Me too.
let's see what
Yeah.
cheese you shouldn't put in your body. We'll find out.
Cheese is amazing, and anyone who says otherwise is lying. It's great with wine, perfect on the side with some crackers, and it can improve almost any savory dish you care to add it to. But not all cheese is equal, and there's some that you should leave sitting on the shelf in the grocery store. We're talking about cheese that's not good for your waistline, bad for the environment, exposing you to a high risk of food poisoning, and one that's even got more in common with foot funk than with anything else in your fridge. So, which cheese should you be skipping?
Just talk about a different. Ignore the cheese.
Queso fresco. Queso fresco is a staple of Mexican cuisine, but there's a dangerous side to this cheese. It can be a breeding ground for listeria. Both homemade and commercially produced queso fresco is likely to grow bacteria, and it's been linked to numerous food poisoning outbreaks. Even if you buy and unwrap a perfectly safe batch of queso fresco, it can easily pick up a contaminant from your home or fridge, where it doesn't take long for a problem to develop. The CDC recommends pregnant women, people with compromised immune systems, and the elderly don't eat queso fresco at all. The risk for listeria is so great. The consequences are serious. It can be fatal and has been linked to miscarriages. This is definitely one case where it's better to be safe than sorry.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Mexico's most favorite cheese, queso fresco, is like a baby killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of soft cheese. Actually, most soft cheeses pregnant women aren't allowed to eat because of that.
Yeah, because I mean, cheese is basically made from bacteria and enzymes, so I could see why. Yeah, let's see what else.
Mascarpone.
Oh,
Mascarpone
not mascarpone. That's delicious.
isn't just a pretty pricey cheese, it's also about 50% fat. That
Oh.
fat content is what makes it an excellent dessert cheese and thickening agent in savory dishes. But it's also what makes this one deserving of the unhealthy reputation cheese can have. If you were to eat a single tablespoon of mascarpone, you'd be eating about 10% of your daily allowance of dietary.
Good God, 10% of your dietary allowance of cholesterol in a tablespoon of cheese. That would not be good.
And let's be real,
In
one
addition
bite
to
of
all
cheese
that fat, since most people are trying to lower their cholesterol, not raise it, that makes being aware of mascarpone's potency pretty important. Fortunately, you can swap out mascarpone for low-fat ricotta in many dishes, and cream cheese and Greek yogurt are also viable replacements. You can also replace just part of the mascarpone to keep the flavor and lose some of the bad stuff, and that's good, because there's a lot of bad stuff. Sheep cheese. If you think sheep cheese would be more environmentally friendly than cow's cheese, you're mistaken. It all comes down to just how much milk and cheese a sheep can produce. When researchers from MTT Agri-Food Research Finland looked at how much methane was produced by sheep, cows, and goats compared to that of how much cheese was ultimately produced, they found sheep were the least efficient of them all. If you want the most environmentally safe option, go with a goat cheese. Not only are they the most efficient animals, but soft cheeses that haven't been aged for a long time are the best when it comes to energy consumption as well. Cheddar. There's no denying that cheddar is a favorite cheese, both versatile and delicious.
Because cheddar cheese makes all the difference.
But because you can easily eat away more than a few servings in a single sitting, moderation is key here. It can quickly become bad for you, especially considering it can contain a huge amount of salt. The Food and Drug Administration recommends that adults consume no more than 1 teaspoon of salt per day. When the UK-based specialist group Consensus Action on Salt and Health tested various types of cheeses, they found that while salt content varied across brands of cheddar, some had a higher concentration of salt than actual seawater. A single matchbox-sized serving of cheddar contained about 1/6 of the recommended daily allotment of salt. And how many of those servings do you put on your nachos? Skip this one if you can.
Yeah.
Velveeta. As amazing as Velveeta is in queso dip, you should still skip it for a few different reasons. A single serving of Velveeta has 80 calories, which doesn't seem like much, but 50 of those calories come from fat. Now let's put serving sizes in perspective. 1 ounce is considered a serving of Velveeta, and there are 16 servings in that block. Given that it's easy to sit and pick away at a bowl of queso dip all night, you know you're going to be getting more than a single serving if this one's on the menu. It's also incredibly high in lactose, making it a problem for not just those who are lactose intolerant, but also those who might be sensitive to dairy. While milk has between 3.7 and 4.8% lactose, Velveeta has a whopping 9.3%. Not
Whoa.
only are you going to pack on the fat and calories, but you're going to feel bad afterwards. Just don't do it. Limburger. Even if you can't stand the idea of Limburger, you probably know someone who loves nothing more than putting some on a sandwich and
gross.
grossing out everyone else in the room. Fortunately for you haters, science is on your side. If you're having a picnic and want to keep the mosquitoes away, put some Limburger out away from the party. The mosquitoes will choose the Limburger over you, and that's because they think it's an extra strong version of what they're attracted to in people, bacterial foot funk. Researchers at a Dutch university have found that the bacteria that turns Limburger into, well, Limburger is the same genus of bacteria that's between your toes. It grows when cheesemakers wash the outside of the cheeses with water, which then nurtures the bacteria in the same way our sweaty feet do.
That's disgusting, and yet another reason why I would never eat Limburger.
Disgusting.
Explain why some people love it, but if you hate it, there's your scientific explanation as to why it's gross. You're welcome.
Well, there you have it, folks. I
What's
think
That was cool, John.
the
That was
key-
really cool.
the key is everything in moderation, right? So
Well, it was mashed.
obviously we all love cheese, you know, but you shouldn't go like horking it down because it's high cholesterol, it's high fat, but it's nice to add from time to time in small quantities into your diet.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna
What was mashed, John?
What?
What was mashed?
That was
I said some goat. I just had some goat cheese.
Dennis. Mashed was the company that made that video.
Oh, gotcha.
It was just putting up their logo.
That's cool.
I just had goat cheese.
You just had some goat cheese? Well, I'm sure
Yeah.
you want to make a grilled cheese sandwich or get some mac and cheese now. So I'm going to let everyone go and get their lunch.
Yeah,
But,
breakfast.
I hope you all learned a little bit about cheese today. I know I did.
I just had breakfast.
Good for you, buddy.
And I eat pepper jack cheese too. Today too.
I will see you soon.
All right, guys. Well, you take care, and I'll see you for campfire night.
Woo!
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.